Am I wrong for telling my girlfriend that I don't like the gift she got me and asking for something else? Yeah, already. I don't care what it is. You can't. That's not. My girlfriend, 22 female, and I, 26 male, have been together for almost 4 years and live together. Oh, okay, kinda sus. She was 18, you were 22, but that's okay. She has a stable career and has bought herself a car and was taught to drive in high school. I was never taught to drive, and it's not really necessary because I can Uber, take the bus, or my girlfriend can drive. She offered before to teach me how to drive, but I declined because I'm not really interested in learning because I don't plan on getting a car since they cost a lot of money. So my birthday was yesterday, and my girlfriend was really excited to give me my gift. It was private driving lessons, which adamantly cost her several $100s. I was really offended because I don't want to learn to drive. Fool, you are 26. A girl does not want to be driving her husband around all the time, especially at that age. My ass is sitting in the passenger seat 24/7. We hate driving. Women hate driving. I do not like driving at all. She hyped the gift up like I love it, but I honestly hate it. It seems more like it's for her because she wants me to learn to drive than it's for me. Yo, get the hint. She doesn't like driving you around. Get a license, you lazy ass. I got really upset and disappointed when I opened it, and she kept pushing to ask why I didn't like it. I told her again that I don't care for driving, and it seemed like a really impersonal gift, because I don't even want my license or a car, so why would I want this? She got really upset, so I suggested she return the lessons and get me something I would like better. Now she's calling me an asshole and said the lessons are non-refundable and is really upset with me. I don't think I'm the asshole because I've told her before that I don't want to drive and I feel like she's trying to change me. Calm down. That is not a change me statement, okay? So now she's being immature and won't drive me anywhere and tells me I can Uber if I want to go somewhere, even if it's somewhere she was going to go already. Like, she went thrifting and to the grocery store without me. We always go together and said if I really wanted to go that badly, I can Uber. It's not even like I ask her for rides ever. I just tag along if she's already going somewhere. I get Ubers to and from work and have a good job, so it's pointless for me to even get a car or license. When I told her that, she said that she's tired of always being the driver. What did I say? What did I say earlier? When I told her that, she said that she's tired of always being the driver and likes to be in the passenger sometimes, but to me, it sounds like she gave me a gift that she wants. Because if she hates being the driver so much, I suggested that I could get lessons for her birthday, not mine, and that upset her even more. She said that isn't a gift for her, and she'd be upset if I got myself driving lessons for her birthday. I told her basically, so you'd be upset if I got you something that you think is for me for your birthday. And she said yes. So even though I explained to her that it's a double standard, she's still insisting that I'm the asshole.
Storytime of how I found out my boyfriend was cheating on me with my cousin. My boyfriend and I had been together for 2.5 years. His family loved me and my family loved him and they expected us to get married. Well, last year when COVID started, we were actually in different countries, so we didn't see each other for 3 months. During those 3 months, we FaceTimed 4 times a day. And we were always texting. He happened to be quarantining in our hometown, so both of our families were in the same place. I was quarantined in a different country. One day my cousin calls me and tells me that she met a really nice guy on a dating website. I was so happy for her because she had had bad luck with guys. Every single week, her and I would catch up on the phone and she would tell me how much she liked this guy and how amazing their dates were and how amazing he was in bed, how sweet and considerate he was. I couldn't be happier for her. Well, when I finally get back home, my boyfriend is super distant and cold. So naturally, I called my cousin and complained. She told me to give him space. She said I should just leave him alone. And so like an idiot, I did leave him alone. One day my cousin calls me and tells me to come over for dinner. When I got there, my boyfriend's car was parked in her garage. I thought it was just her nice way of trying to get us to talk. I walk in and catch them doing the dirty on the couch. Come back for part 2. So I walk in on my cousin and my boyfriend doing the dirty on her couch. They quickly get up from the couch and get dressed. Of course, by that time, I'm in hysterics. I'm crying and yelling. My boyfriend instantly got on his knees and begged me for forgiveness. I went up to my cousin and I punched her right in the face. She wasn't expecting that. And I said, well, this is the guy that you've been dating, isn't it? She said yes, and that she was just trying to find the best way to tell me. And so she just thought the best way to tell me was to get me to walk in on her and him doing the dirty. I punched her again. My boyfriend came to her rescue though. Instantly went into hero mode, which made me even angrier, so I punched him too. I stormed out of her house and went back to my house. Well, I told my parents everything. And my dad went over to my uncle's house, my cousin's dad, and he told him everything. She was about to turn 19, so he took away her phone and her car. And I get a phone call from my ex, come back for part 3. Part 3. So my lying, cheating ex calls me and explains to me why he actually slept with my cousin. He said that he was so lonely and that he didn't know what to do, and that the closest thing to me he could find was my cousin. Right, as if that was any comfort to me. He said I should be grateful that I didn't cheat with someone else. I told him he had totally betrayed my trust and that I could never ever trust him again. And then he confessed that she was pregnant, and that his parents wanted them to get married. He said he just wanted to give me a heads up. Then he said that we could still be together, but just not tell anyone, so basically he wanted me to be his side piece. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of his mouth. It was like I didn't know this man. Guess what I did? I recorded the entire conversation. So I went straight to my cousin and I let her listen to it. She was so shocked. She couldn't believe that he would offer to have me as a side chick. Well, I also let my uncle listen to it. He went to my ex's house and beat him up. Honestly, that made me sad, but he deserved it. They now have a baby and he's gained 50 pounds. Trust your instincts, girl, and always record your conversations. Also, how cute are my nails?
Am I wrong for blowing up at a nurse for telling me that my daughter wasn't my daughter? So me and my partner adopted our daughter 2 years ago. We don't have any biological children and we don't really plan to just yet. Our daughter is 6 years old now. She does understand that she's adopted, and we've made it clear time and time again that even though she didn't come from my belly, we still love her and treat her as if she did. The other day I took her to a pediatrician because she said that one of her ears felt full. She did have a cold last week, so that was expected, and he said that her ear would drain out eventually. All good. The nurse comes in with a discharge sheet and commented that she would never assume that I was the mother of my daughter since I looked nothing like her, which I don't for obvious reasons. So then I said, oh yeah, we adopted her, so that's why she doesn't look like me or my husband. Then the nurse goes, oh, okay, so she isn't your daughter. I was a little confused because I thought I had just explained this whole situation. I said again, she is my daughter. We adopted her a few years back. The nurse says, but technically, she isn't really your daughter, and her real mom is somewhere else. I was really upset because what the actual fuck? I said again, but she is my daughter, and I am her mom. The nurse kind of sighed and said, okay, maybe legally you are, but her real mom is the one that gave birth to her. My daughter was looking up at me kind of confused, and I can't even imagine what was going through her head. I had enough. I said to the nurse, what the hell is wrong with you? I keep telling you that I am her mother, and you keep denying that, and in front of my daughter no less. The nurse goes, I'm just stating a fact. Biologically, she's not yours. I went again, yeah, because she's adopted. We adopted her and gave her a home. What, I have to physically push her out of me to be her mother? The nurse goes, well, that's the dictionary definition of what a mom is. I had enough. I told her to wash her mouth of the bullshit she has been saying to me and my daughter, and I left and went home. I was really shaken up at this point and still was when I got home and my husband noticed. I told him what had happened and he told me that the nurse was really dumb for saying that, but I shouldn't have blown up on her like that. So, am I wrong for my reaction? No, because what you had was a mother's reaction because you are her mom. I would say report the nurse too, like, what? That is completely inappropriate.
Imagine having parents so strict that you decide to hire a hitman to take them out. Jennifer Pan was a young girl born in 1986 in Markham, Ontario. Her parents had fled Vietnam in 1979 and worked hard to provide for their children the opportunities that they never had. Eventually, their hard work paid off and they were able to purchase a large home, nice cars, and accumulated a hefty savings. They disciplined their daughter by enrolling her in piano lessons at the age of 4 and figure skating in elementary school. In high school, she thrived both academically and socially. However, when she tore a ligament in her knee, any hopes of being a professional skater were gone. In 8th grade, Pan started self-harming. In 11th grade, she found solace in a 12th grader named Daniel Wong, who she began dating. However, he was forced to transfer to a new school and police found a pound of marijuana in his car. This is when her grades began to slide from A's to B's, but she was still accepted into early admission until she failed calculus her senior year and the college withdrew their offer. Pan started forging her report cards and claimed to still be starting university in the fall. She lied to her father about her transfer status and claimed that she even got $3,000 in his scholarship. He was so proud of his daughter that he bought her a laptop. In the fall, Pan commuted to cafes or Wong's dorm pretending to go to class. She even claimed to have successfully transferred to the University of Toronto in 2006 right on schedule. In 2008, as graduation loomed closer, she told her parents that she was only given one ticket and had to give it to her friend as to not exclude one of her parents. She was now supposedly a newfound graduate and told her parents that she was volunteering at a hospital in Toronto. Her parents grew suspicious due to the lack of uniform or ID badge. They decided to follow her to work one day and she was finally exposed. She had her phone and laptop confiscated and was forbidden from dating Wong. Over the next 2 years, she worked hard and regained her parents' trust, having her phone privileges restored. She was now 24 years old. She had never been drunk or gone out dancing. However, Daniel Wong and Jennifer reconnected. This is when he provided her with a spare phone, the same one she used to ask him to help her stage a robbery to kill her parents. Wong introduced her to an underworld friend named Lenford Crawford. After exchanging a series of texts, Pan agreed to pay Crawford $10,000 out of her eventual inheritance to take her parents out. He prepared to scope out her neighborhood on Halloween 2010. Kids in costumes streaming up and down the street provided the perfect cover. A week later, on November 8th, he texted Pan after work, okay, will be game time. Pan's father was asleep in bed and her mother was downstairs reading. Her younger brother was studying engineering at McMaster University and thankfully wasn't home. She said goodnight to her mother and unlocked the front door before going upstairs. At 10:02 p.m., she turned on the lights in the upstairs study. 3 minutes later, Crawford and 2 others entered the home. Crime Fanatic Freddy Part 2. Imagine having parents so strict that you decide to hire a hitman to take them out. Jennifer Pan asked her boyfriend Daniel Wong to help her stage a robbery to kill her parents. With the help of 3 others, the plan was set in motion and the men entered the house around 10 p.m. on November 8, 2010. They were all carrying guns and one pointed at Jennifer's mother while another ran upstairs, pointing the gun at her father's face and directed him out of bed, down the stairs into the living room. Upstairs, Jennifer was confronted outside of her bedroom. According to her, he tied her arms behind her using a shoelace and directed her back inside where she handed him over $2,500 in cash, then to her parents' room where he located another $1,100 in her mother's nightstand, finally leading her to the kitchen for her mother's wallet. Her parents were talking to each other in Cantonese, wondering how the men got inside their house. The men asked them where the money was. After her father said he only had $60 in his wallet, the men called him a liar and pistol whipped him in the back of the head. Pan's mother started crying and pleading with them not to hurt their daughter. They replied not to worry and that they wouldn't. 2 of the men took Pan's parents to the basement, wrapped their heads in blankets and shot them. Pan's father was shot in the shoulder and then the head and slumped over. Her mother was shot 3 times in the head and died instantly. Pan somehow managed to reach her phone and dial 911, crying for help on the phone. However, the unexpected happens while she's on the call. Her father gains consciousness, covered in blood with his his dead wife's body next to him and crawled upstairs to the main floor. He can be heard in the background moaning. Pan yells down that she's calling 911. Her father stumbled outside, screaming wildly, and encountered his startled neighbor who was about to leave for work in the driveway next door. The neighbor also called 911. Minutes later, police arrived and Han was rushed to the nearby hospital and then airlifted to Sunnybrook. Jennifer Pan was interviewed at 3 in the morning and she told him the story that she had come up with. The more they interviewed her, the more holes began popping up in her story. If it was a home invasion, why were the keys to the Lexus untouched? And how did they get in so easily? Eventually, they got Pan to admit that she was part of the crime. She later tried to convince the jury that she ordered the hit but changed her mind and wanted nothing to do with it, but they found her guilty of first-degree murder. She received 2 life sentences with no possibility of parole for 25 years. The men who helped her got the same sentence. Her remaining family, including her father and brother, cut off all contact with her and both suffer from depression.
Am I the asshole for telling my sister that her husband would take her more seriously if she didn't dress like she did? My 26 female sister Anna married my friend Lance, 27 male. He was the cool guy in our friend group, handsome, mysterious, smart, quiet. I don't know how he ended up with my sister. She's the total opposite. Loud, funny, outgoing. She is beautiful though, really beautiful. And when they got together, everyone said how good they looked. Anna seemed to be really in love with him all the time. She used to say how dreamy he was, how good he treated her, and how spoiled she felt. But Lance was always so stern and quiet. She would revolve around him at family gatherings, but he wouldn't engage that much with everyone but me and her. I was surprised when he asked her to marry him. My sister never took the wifey role too serious. She had a non-traditional wedding, and Lance went along with it. She made a bunch of rules that he agreed to, and then they moved to his house. Anna banned house utensils from the wedding guest list. She didn't work, didn't finish her studies, and they don't plan on having kids. My sister is pretty much only into her looks, and I didn't think Lance cared for that before. She's always on Snapchat or Instagram. I thought that after getting married, she would dress more appropriate since she used to use crop tops, blouses, dresses, and shirts that showed her cleavage, short skirts, or tight jeans. But she says that Lance likes her just fine. Last week was my dad's birthday, and we had a party. My sister and Lance came, and she was wearing a pretty short floral dress. Nonetheless, most of the men were looking at her, including my dad's friends. Lance was as stoic as always, and my sister came to my mom and I saying that she didn't know why he was so quiet since he's not like that. He is like, what the fuck? So I told her that if she didn't dress like that, he might take her more seriously. She got sad and sat quiet the rest of the night, and I didn't think much of it. But a few days ago, Lance texted me and said that he would appreciate it if I didn't comment on his wife's way of dressing again. Did I miss something? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And this must have been an edit. All caps. I'm not in love with him. Really? Because it seems like you are.
Yeah, leave your sister alone, meanie.
So many pick-me's, so little time. Am I the asshole for wearing sexy clothes around my roommate's boyfriend? I study in the city and I share an apartment with 2 other girls. I work at a bookstore and a cheese shop, all so I don't need loans. It leaves me exhausted when I get home. I usually take a shower, make dinner, and just go to my room. It was all fine until one of my roommate's boyfriends started hanging around with her almost every night. It didn't bother me at all until last Sunday morning when I was in the kitchen making coffee. The boyfriend came in and asked if he could have coffee and started chatting. The roommate later came in and she was visibly annoyed, so I asked her what's up and she said nothing. When her boyfriend left, she asked to talk to me. She told me that my breasts are very distracting and that maybe I should consider wearing a bra or a thick hoodie when I'm in the common areas, or simply just buy takeouts so I don't need anything to use in the kitchen every evening when she, the other roommate, and their boyfriends are hanging out. I didn't read this one, you guys. She's clearly not a pick-me. I thought this was going to go a totally different way. The thing is that when I was making coffee that day, I was wearing a gray t-shirt and sweatpants. The boyfriend was in his boxers and she was wearing silk negligee. She's 6 feet tall and very beautiful. She has done some modeling. I'm 5'6", and while I'm happy with how I look, I never thought of myself as a threat to someone like her. So I laughed and asked her if she was serious. She became upset and told me that her boyfriend has been talking about my breasts. I was grossed out, so I just went to my room. All last week, I brought takeout with me and stayed in my room.
No, come on.
Yesterday, however, I came home at 6 p.m. They were already in the kitchen, the roommates and their boyfriends. Before I went into my room, the roommate yelled, "Pizza again? Soon you won't be able to go through the door."
Who is this bitch?
I was fuming. I put my sexiest push-up bra on, hot pants, and tiny see-through top. I went to the kitchen and started making food. The roommate was livid. She started yelling and then stormed off to her bedroom while crying and calling me a whore. My other roommate thought I was an asshole and heartless because the roommate has confided in us about her insecurities and eating disorder in the past that left her hating her body. Was I the asshole?
No, I'm sorry to hear about this eating disorder. But no, you are not. This is not. No.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
She does go, edit. I should mention that none of the two girls wear bras at home, but my breasts are on the larger scale. I think that's the problem because I never heard my roommate asking the other roommate to wear a bra.
It's ridiculous.
Which is, again, the double standard.
Exactly.
Like
So
small
ridiculous.
boobs, big boobs. Small boobs, big boobs.
Am I wrong for telling my girlfriend that I don't like the gift she got me and asking for something else? Yeah, already. I don't care what it is. You can't. That's not. My girlfriend, 22 female, and I, 26 male, have been together for almost 4 years and live together. Oh, okay, kind of sus. She was 18, you were 22, but that's okay. She has a stable career and has bought herself a car and was taught to drive in high school. I was never taught to drive, and it's not really necessary because I can Uber, take the bus, or my girlfriend can drive. She offered before to teach me how to drive, but I declined because I'm not really interested in learning because I don't plan on getting a car since they cost a lot of money. So my birthday was yesterday, and my girlfriend was really excited to give me my gift. It was private driving lessons, which adamantly cost her several $100s. I was really offended because I don't want to learn to drive. Fool, you are 26. A girl does not want to be driving her husband around all the time, especially at that age. My ass is sitting in the passenger seat 24/7. We hate driving. Women hate driving. I do not like driving at all. She hypes the gift up like I love it, but I honestly hate it. It seems more like it's for her because she wants me to learn to drive than it's for me. Yo, get the hint. She doesn't like driving you around. Get a license, you lazy ass. I got really upset and disappointed when I opened it, and she kept pushing to ask why I didn't like it. I told her again that I don't care for driving, and it seemed like a really impersonal gift because I don't even want my license or a car, so why would I want this? She got really upset, so I suggested she return the lessons and get me something I would like better. Now she's calling me an asshole and said the lessons are non-refundable and is really upset with me. I don't think I'm the asshole because I've told her before that I don't want to drive and I feel like she's trying to change me. Calm down. That is not a change me statement, okay? So now she's being immature and won't drive me anywhere and tells me I can Uber if I want to go somewhere, even if it's somewhere she was going to go already. Like, she went thrifting and to the grocery store without me. We always go together, and said if I really wanted to go that badly, I could Uber. It's not even like I asked her for rides ever. I just tag along if she's already going somewhere. I get Ubers to and from work and have a good job, so it's pointless for me to even get a car or license. When I told her that, she said that she's tired of always being the driver. What did I say? What did I say earlier? When I told her that, she said that she's tired of always being the driver and likes to be in the passenger sometimes, but to me, it sounds like she gave me a gift that she wants. Because if she hates being the driver so much, I suggested that I could get lessons for her birthday, not mine, and that upset her even more. She said that isn't a gift for her, and she'd be upset if I got myself driving lessons for her birthday. I told her basically, so you'd be upset if I got you something that you think is for me for your birthday? And she said yes. So even though I explained to her that it's a double standard, she's still insisting that I'm the asshole. Am I wrong for blowing up at a nurse for telling me that my daughter wasn't my daughter? So me and my partner adopted our daughter 2 years ago. We don't have any biological children and we don't really plan to just yet. Our daughter is 6 years old now. She does understand that she's adopted, and we've made it clear time and time again that even though she didn't come from my belly, we still love her and treat her as if she did. The other day I took her to a pediatrician because she said that one of her ears felt full. She did have a cold last week, so that was expected, and he said that her ear would drain out eventually. All good. The nurse comes in with a discharge sheet and commented that she would never assume that I was the mother of my daughter since I looked nothing like her, which I don't for obvious reasons. So then I said, oh yeah, we adopted her, so that's why she doesn't look like me or my husband. Then the nurse goes, oh, okay, so she isn't your daughter. I was a little confused because I thought I had just explained this whole situation. I said again, she is my daughter. We adopted her a few years back. The nurse says, but technically, she isn't really your daughter, and her real mom is somewhere else. I was really upset because what the actual fuck? I said again, but she is my daughter and I am her mom. The nurse kind of sighed and said, okay, maybe legally you are, but her real mom is the one that gave birth to her. My daughter was looking up at me kind of confused, and I can't even imagine what was going through her head. I had enough. I said to the nurse, what the hell is wrong with you? I keep telling you that I am her mother and you keep denying that, and in front of my daughter no less. The nurse goes, I'm just stating a fact. Biologically, she's not yours. I went again, yeah, because she's adopted. We adopted her and gave her a home. What, I have to physically push her out of me to be her mother? The nurse goes, well, that's the dictionary definition of what a mom is. I had enough. I told her to wash her mouth of the bullshit she has been saying to me and my daughter, and I left and went home. I was really shaken up at this point and still was when I got home and my husband noticed. I told him what had happened, and he told me that the nurse was really dumb for saying that, but I shouldn't have blown up on her like that. So, am I wrong for my reaction? No, because what you had was a mother's reaction because you are her mom. I would say report the nurse too, like, what? That is completely inappropriate.
Am I the asshole for asking my friend to take a shower? I have a buddy visiting from out of state, and he was staying with me, crashing on an air mattress in my living room. We went hiking today like 7 miles and plan on going to see a movie tonight for 4th of July. When we get back to my apartment, I tell him I need to take my dog for a walk and to take a shower while I'm gone. He responds, that's what a normal person would do. For context, he's an introvert and sometimes doesn't get social cues. I don't think twice about it, grab my dog and head out for a walk. I got back 30 minutes later and he was still sitting on the couch in the same spot with his dirty hiking clothes on. I'm like, WTF, bro? Am I the asshole for asking my friend to take a shower? So I'm like, ew, bro, take a shower, rinse yourself, and put on some fresh clothes. He responds that he doesn't like when people tell him what to do. I tell him to get off my couch and asked him how he would feel if I came into his home filthy and sat on his couch, especially if he offered me a shower. I say if he doesn't want a shower, at least sit on the kitchen stool so his sweat doesn't get on the fabric. We argued and he said he's gonna find an Airbnb, and then I hopped in the shower. When I got out, he was gone and I called and texted him. He told me to throw away anything that he left behind because our friendship is over. Am I the asshole for refusing to sing a song I've written for my girlfriend at my sister's wedding? I wrote a very touchy song for my girlfriend who I've been with for 3 years. I even synthesized music for it and I want to record it and personally give it to my girlfriend since it's special for us. My family asked me to play them the song since it's my first song I've ever finished, and I did. My sister was very touched and asked me to play that song on her wedding day for her and her husband. I said I could try to make another song for them if I have the right inspiration, but I don't want to play this one because it's personal. She insisted it's not a big deal and wants me to play the song. I said no and she pulled the "It's My Wedding" card.
My mother-in-law is so terrible that I'm considering breaking up with my boyfriend. Disclaimers is not always Storytime. I sent me on Instagram. My mother-in-law has done everything in her power to separate my boyfriend and I. And though she doesn't admit it, she loves it. When my boyfriend and I started dating, we were both really happy, really loving and affectionate. We love to spend time with each other, so our relationship is really well-rounded. In fact, my boyfriend comes to my apartment every single day. Without me asking him, he always just wants to spend time with me. After 3 weeks of dating, we decided we'd meet each other's parents. Even though he was incredibly nervous to meet my parents, they went out of their way to make him feel at home. My parents had invited us over for dinner, and they literally made his favorite foods and even bought his favorite dessert. Needless to say, my parents loved him and he loved my parents. The following week, we met his parents. It went okay, I guess. His parents wanted to take us out to dinner, which was nice. His dad was super charismatic, funny, and made a lot of conversation. His mom hugged me and kissed me, so I thought she was okay. But throughout the dinner, she would kind of look at me and not really say anything. Basically, she only responded when my boyfriend talked. Obviously, I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I didn't tell my boyfriend anything. Next day, I get a text message from my mother-in-law. She asked me to have lunch with her. Just the two of us. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend confessed to me that he's attracted to my best friend. Should I leave him? Disclaimer is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. I know you guys are gonna all say yes immediately, but hear me out. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 6 months. My best friend and I actually met him at a bar. That night, I never expected that he would ever come after me. I consider my best friend the prettier of the two of us, so I'm used to her getting hit on instead of me. But that night, my boyfriend came to me. He talked to me pretty much the entire night, and my best friend told me to go for it. So I did. He and I spent the night together, and after that, we were inseparable. To the point where he wanted me to move in with him after 2 months. My parents thought I was absolutely crazy and they didn't want me to move in with him, but I did anyway. I come from a Latino family, so this was absolutely reprehensible. I went against my family's wishes and they actually stopped speaking to me for a little bit, but luckily I got them back. My boyfriend during that time gave me all his support. He told me that my family would come around eventually and that they would see that we were in love. So living together was a logical next step. After 3 months of living together, I knew that I wanted to marry him, and he would talk about marriage all the time. He asked me what kind of ring I would want and what I would want for the proposal. We even started talking about our honeymoon. I was also starting to get in the best shape of my life. I was looking super snatched. My boyfriend told me that he loved the way that I look, but that he didn't want me to get skinny. Again, I just felt like he was supporting me and loving me. Around this time, my best friend started dating somebody. After a few weeks, they got really serious about the relationship. And of course, we went on double dates. After the 3rd double date, I noticed that my boyfriend was getting a little annoyed. I got the feeling he was jealous of my best friend's boyfriend. Follow for part 2. My boyfriend confessed to me that he's attracted to my best friend. Should I leave him? Disclaimer is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. I asked him if he was jealous of my best friend's boyfriend, and that's when he said no. But every time we would go on double dates, he would get in such a bad mood. 3 weeks ago, my best friend told me that she was moving in with her boyfriend. And when I told my boyfriend that they were moving in, his face almost went green. I asked him what was wrong and he said nothing. After that, he went into the bathroom and didn't come out for 40 minutes. Again, I asked him if he was okay and he said yeah. And I sat him down and asked him to be honest with me. That's when he said, I'm attracted to your best friend. Instantly started to cry because I had already been suspecting it. He explained to me that he didn't have any feelings for her until she got a boyfriend, and that he felt that he had some sort of ownership over her. Before my best friend got a boyfriend, the 3 of us would hang out a lot. And not once then did I ever get a feeling that he was attracted to her. He told me that he would never act on his feelings, but he didn't want to go on any more double dates. I asked him if he wanted to be with her instead of me, and he said absolutely not. He said that I was the love of his life and that attraction only meant attraction, that he didn't have feelings for her. A few days later, he took me to the most expensive restaurant in our city and asked me to marry him. But I didn't know what to say. I can't stop thinking that he's attracted to my best friend. Part 3 is up. Friend confessed to me that he's attracted to my best friend. What should I do? Disclaimers on my story time was sending me on Instagram. After he proposed, I told him I didn't know what to say. He told me to think it over. I finally decided to tell my best friend what my boyfriend had told me. That he had confessed that he was attracted to her. First she laughed. I told her no. I'm serious. He confessed that he's attracted to you. That's when she told me I needed to break up with him. That's when I told her that he had also proposed. And she said, well then you really need to break up with him now. That's when she told me that she didn't want me to resent her and that it was completely out of her control. And I didn't. I promised her that I would never resent her for my boyfriend being attracted to her. It's not like she ever did anything on purpose to make him feel attracted. She also told me that marrying him right now would be rushing into it. And she's kind of right. We've only really known each other for 6 months. Then she told me that she's never gotten the feeling that he's attracted to her. She's never caught him looking at her or anything like that. So now her theory is that he's looking for an easy way out and that he probably wants me to break up with him. But my boyfriend is still sweet and super affectionate. He's constantly showering me with love. My best friend thinks that if I stay with him, our relationship will suffer. I've known my best friend longer. What should I do? Storytime about how my fiance is refusing to help me plan our wedding. Should I leave him? Disclaimers is not my storytime and send me on Instagram. I'm so sad about the palette. My fiance and I met a few years ago through friends. When we first met each other, I had a really bad first impression of him. First off, he was completely up himself. All he did was talk about himself and never once asked me questions. We were surrounded by other people, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt when he asked me out. I said yes, but our first date was kind of the same. He only really talked about himself, his career, the things he likes to do, his favorite food, his family, his dog. I eventually just started volunteering information because he wouldn't really ask me. After our date, I didn't speak to him for a full 2 weeks. I was really turned off by his attitude, but then he messaged me saying that he was really nervous and that he realizes that he probably could have been a little more talkative. I said, yeah, you could have been. I told him how I really felt and he did apologize and he asked me out to dinner again. This time I invited him to my apartment and he made us a full 4-course meal. By the way, he's a chef. Obviously, that night, I completely fell in love with him. He made all of my favorite foods, but the gourmet version. A few months later, we became boyfriend and girlfriend. There were still a few things that I didn't like about him, though. Like, he never really had anything to talk about other than himself. Exactly a year after we met, he decided to propose, and I said yes. But when I asked him to do things for the wedding, he says no. Part 2 is up. Storytime about how my fiance is refusing to help me plan our wedding. Disclaimers did not my storytime, it's sending me on Instagram. To be honest, when he asked me to marry him, I was totally blindsided. Honestly felt like our relationship was starting to get stale. So when he asked me to marry him, I was like, for real? He told me that I was the first person who ever made him feel important. And looking back, I realized that it's because he only talked about himself and I really let him talk about only himself. Anyway, I immediately said yes out of the excitement, but when I called my mom to tell her, I was actually crying, which is like, okay, maybe I shouldn't marry him then. A few weeks into our engagement, we hadn't talked about planning at all. So I decided to ask him, like, what do you want the wedding to be like? That's when he told me that he didn't really care, but that he would just give me money for it. I mean, on one hand, that makes me really happy because I don't want my parents to have to pay for the wedding, and he has a lot of money. But on the other hand, I want him to be involved, especially for the food because he's a chef. I decided to hire a wedding planner because my job is extremely busy. I work in marketing. I asked him to go to a few meetings with me. He said no. When I finally found the perfect wedding planner, I asked my fiance if we could go have lunch with him, and he said no. This is when I blew up in his face. I asked him why he wasn't participating at all. That's when he told me that he was too busy at the restaurant, that he didn't have time to do anything with the wedding. I was like, okay, fine. When it came time to choosing the caterers, I demanded that he go with me. He told me that he would try to get off work, but he never did. Every time I tried to schedule it, he would say that he was busy with work. That's when I told him that his restaurant, which is super fancy, should just cater the whole wedding. And he said no. He told me they were way too busy and ready to get a Michelin star, so there was absolutely no way they could cater his wedding. That's when he said, you can handle it, I trust you. I went home and cried the entire night. Part 3 is up. Storytime about how my fiance refuses to help me plan our wedding. Claimers did not my storytime, it's sending me on Instagram. After I got home and cried, he came home and asked me what was wrong. That's when I told him that he didn't seem excited about the wedding, and that leaving all the planning to me made me feel like I was his employee, as if I had nothing better to do, which I do have my career just like he has his. Not to mention the fact that me picking everything I want for our wedding makes it feel like it's my wedding and not ours. He told me that I was overreacting. He also said that he was excited for the wedding, but that he was too tired and too busy to even think about it. That's when I told him that I was really busy and I was really tired too. Then he begrudgingly told me that he would carve out some time this week so that we could speak to some of the caterers. I told the wedding planner and he started setting up some meetings. But of course, my fiance canceled on the first 2. He did show up to the 3rd one, but all he did was criticize the food. Then we went cake tasting. I expected this to be fun. When my friends have had cake tastings for their wedding, they always have so much fun. As soon as we showed up to the cake shop, he asked me, where did you find this? That's when I told him that our planner had found it. He said it looked like a supermarket bakery. That's when I told him that I don't mind supermarket bakeries and that it was probably just as good as a French bakery. He laughed and said, wow, you're funny, babe. We tasted the cakes and he actually liked them. Thank God. But then he requested to go to more cake tastings. We ended up going to 5 other places. This was already too much for me. I got a new account at work and I'm still trying to lose weight for the wedding. So him making me run around trying to taste cake is like the straw that broke the camel's back. After 2 weeks, we finally decided on a cake flavor. Most people must have fun planning their weddings, right? But I just feel like I'm drowning. I have to make all the important decisions on my own. I decided to involve my mom and sister and they've helped me so much. Of course, the wedding planner is helping me too, but ultimately the decisions have to be made by me. He hasn't made any effort to help me with anything else. Kinda want to break up with him, but I feel like this isn't a big enough reason to break up with him. What should I do? Secretly hate my husband, but I can't leave him. Disclaimers on my Storytime listed me on Instagram. My husband and I have only been married for 2 months. We dated on and off for almost 7 years. So when he finally proposed, I was actually really happy. The problem is that we never lived together before we got married. He never wanted to move in with me when we were dating. He also had this thing where he wouldn't want me to come to his apartment randomly. He would always schedule times where I could hang out with him at his apartment. This all seems suspicious, but I really wanted to marry him, so I just decided to overlook those things. But now that we're married, I see why he didn't want me to come over and why he had all these strange rules. It turns out that he's incredibly messy, lazy, and is super picky about the food he eats. So now that I'm his wife, I'm constantly having to clean up after him. Every single time he goes to the toilet, he always leaves skid marks, or for some reason, he always has like explosive poop and it goes everywhere on the bowl. So every single time I go to the bathroom after he does, I'm always having to clean it up. And it makes me so angry that I have to clean up after him that I have begun to hate him. Also, he's super picky about his food. We can never go to restaurants because he never wants anything on the menu. And if we ever do go to a restaurant, we have to go wherever he wants. I love all types of cuisine, especially Indian, Mediterranean, Japanese, but he thinks it's gross. He comes from a very American family. He grew up eating chicken nuggets and grilled cheeses. To him, anything with some spice is way too much. That means I can't cook what I want because he always complains about the smell. Thankfully, he's got an office that's 30 minutes away. So when he leaves, that's when I cook. But I have to make sure to air out the apartment before he gets home. I'm always doing his laundry and cleaning up after him. Every single time he shaves, he leaves hair everywhere. I actually hate this man now. I told him that I don't want to live with him anymore, but he freaked out. He's begging for me to stay, but I'm so unhappy. What should I do? Am I the asshole for cutting off my jealous mom? Disclaimers is not my story time, it's me on Instagram. Then she somehow managed to get jealous that my dad and I were getting along super well. She called my dad while my dad was visiting me and threw a tantrum about how she needed him to go home. So my dad cut his trip short just to go be with my insecure mother. After that, I really didn't speak to my mom for about 2 months. I couldn't believe that she always managed to make me feel less than. And somehow she always made everything about her. I reached out to my brothers and asked them if they ever felt the same about my mom, and they said no. My mom was totally different with them. She took care of them and doted on them. Probably because they're boys and not me, because I'm a girl. One day I decided to call my grandmother and I told her everything. That's when my grandma told me that my mom has always been that way and that I just shouldn't take it personally. Apparently when my mom was growing up, she did not have any girlfriends. She always liked staying away from other women to not have any competition. But I told my grandma that she's my mom and that she shouldn't see me as competition. Grandma suspects that something is wrong with my mom, so, I don't know if she's bipolar or something, but obviously I can't diagnose her. Thankfully, I have other women in my life, my grandma and 2 of my aunts. They act like my moms more than my own mother. When I graduated college, I was actually engaged. My fiance and I bought a house and we started planning our wedding. And of course, my mom wanted to help me plan it. I really didn't want this, but I decided to give her a chance. But once again, she managed to make everything about her. The entire time, she criticized my choices, even my wedding dress, which I absolutely loved, and it really did look good on me. She told me I needed to wear something more flattering. And then she ended up wearing my wedding dress in a different color. After the wedding, I decided to tell my dad and my brothers that I was going to cut my mom off. My dad begged me not to, but I still went ahead and did it. I called my mom and told her that I needed some time apart from her and that I did not want her calling me. Of course, she pretended like she had never done anything wrong in my life and that she's only been the perfect dedicated mother that she wishes she could be. Instead of arguing with her, I told her to just give me some space. She agreed to it and I haven't spoken to her in about 3 months. My dad and grandma keep begging me to talk to her. I don't think my mom is sad at all. She's always posting to her Instagram. She goes to Pilates, brunch with her friends, and travels with my dad. I think she's probably fine. But what should I do? Am I the asshole for cutting off my jealous mom? When I was going through puberty, my mom started comparing my body to hers. She would say things like, you know what, it's okay that you're not developing as quickly as I did, or that her boobs were already much bigger than mine were when I was 14. Here's a little backstory on my family. My mom has always been extremely dramatic and I think toxic. I feel bad calling her toxic. On the other hand, I have a great relationship with my dad. And my 2 siblings are both guys, so they don't have the same experience I did with my mom. My dad always acted as a buffer between me and my mom, even though my mom was the one that was starting all the fights. When I got into high school, I realized how attractive I was. Honestly, I had no clue that I was even a pretty girl. Looking back now, I realized that my mom really really did make me feel like I was less than. When I started getting attention from boys in high school, I was really happy. I finally felt like I was seen. And because my mom wasn't there, I was able to thrive. Whereas in my house, I would even dress down in front of my mom just so that she wouldn't get jealous of me. The first time I brought a boy over to our house, my mom totally flipped out. She said that I was acting like an SLUT, but really, this boy was only a friend. My dad, thank God, told her that she needed to relax and that I was allowed to have friends. Eventually, I started dating a boy behind my mom's back. I did tell my dad, though. My dad was actually happy for me. This boyfriend was like my best friend. I could tell him everything, and he always responded really positively and gave me really good advice about my mom. But one day, one of my brothers let it slip that I had a boyfriend. My mom punished me for an entire month. My dad tried to intervene, but my mom went crazy. Here's the thing. She made me break up with him, and then I caught her flirting with him. Part 2 is up. Am I the asshole for cutting off my jealous mom? When I caught her flirting with my now ex, who she made me break up with, I pretended like I didn't hear her. But she was flirting with him. She told him that he had really good muscles and that he looked a lot older than he was. Thank God, my ex didn't respond and went home. Afterwards, I confronted my mom and told her that I overheard the conversation. She told me that I was being a snob. I didn't talk to her for about 3 days. On the 3rd day, she came crying to my room. She wanted us to make up. So she decided to take me shopping at the mall. And being the toxic person that she is, she managed to make everything about her. Tried on a bunch of clothes, which actually did look really good on her. Oh, by the way, my mom was a model back in the 90s, so she's kind of stuck in that mindset. She thinks she's the most beautiful person. She thinks she's the best. Anyway, when it was my turn to try on some clothes, she said that I looked a little too tubby, that I should maybe lose a few pounds. I told her that she hurt my feelings and she instantly apologized. Our relationship kept going like this up until I was 18. When I finally moved away for college, I was the happiest I'd ever been. Being away from my mom was like a breath of fresh air. But of course, it never stopped. My mom decided to come visit me to college, and I knew that I needed to be prepared for that. When she came over to my dorm, I made sure it was super clean. Also, my grades were super good, and I basically had a few friends but no boyfriend. When she came over to my apartment, she was like, "Oh, it's so simple." I was like, "What do you mean?" She said that I needed to decorate and show my personality more. She stayed with me for a total of 3 days, and the whole time I was grinding my teeth. When she finally left, I was happy again. Then my dad came to visit. Hanging out with my dad was the best. Took me shopping for my apartment and made me feel so at home. My mom got jealous. Part 3 is fiance fakes being rich just to get me to marry him. Should I leave him? My fiance has lied to me literally over hundreds of times. It all started when he and I met 3 years ago. I was turning 32 and going through a divorce, so I had no intention of ever getting into another relationship. At least not for a long time. Come from a really wealthy family, so I inherited a lot of money when I turned 18. That never stopped me from getting a job. I started working in fashion and it was amazing. Eventually I became a stylist and had my own business. My relationship with my then husband was not going well, so we decided to get a divorce. But my ex-husband and I never really had hard feelings and we stayed friends. At the time I was living in New York and had tons of friends. Every single weekend I was going out. And since I was single, I literally had nobody to answer to. My friends and I would go to exclusive clubs and restaurants every single night. This is how I met my compulsive liar of a fiance. He was friends with somebody in my friend group. Now everyone in my group was pretty wealthy. We all drove expensive cars, owned our own businesses, and we worked really hard. One of my friends introduced me to him, and within the first 5 minutes of our conversation, he told me that he was a Calvin Klein model. Of course I believed it because he was really attractive. And he basically asked me how much money I made a year. And I was honest with him. I earned around $300,000 a year. That's when he told me that he was a millionaire. Follow for part 2. Fiance faked being rich just so that I could marry him. Should I leave him? The very first night I met him, he told me that he was a millionaire and that he was a Calvin Klein model. Of course, I believed him because he was just that attractive. Then he asked me how much I earned per year, and I told him the truth, $300,000. Look on his face was of utter shock. He told me he almost couldn't believe that I would make that much money. He started talking about how he's a millionaire and he models and he travels around the world. I was actually impressed. Later that night, I asked a friend that introduced me to him if it was all true. She said, yeah, he posts about it on his Instagram, so I think so. Went to the bathroom and started looking him up on Instagram. And it looked like it was true. He did model for Calvin Klein and was modeling around the world. But honestly, from his Instagram, I really couldn't gather if he was a millionaire or not. It's not like he was posting pictures of him in a Maybach or anything. That very same night, he asked me if he could come to my apartment, and I said no. The very next day, he asked me out on a date, and I said yes. Ended up going to a really fancy restaurant, and he paid for the bill. When the bill came, it was over $1,000. Ordered so many things off the menu. But what I really didn't like was that he barely touched any of the food. The rest of the week, he invited me to all these different restaurants. On our second week, I asked him if he wanted to come to my place to have dinner dinner, which he did. And the look of his face when he showed up to my apartment was like shocked. Finally, he asked me how much my rent was. That's when I told him I didn't pay rent. I owned the apartment. That's when he said, yeah, I own my own place too. And then I asked him, why haven't you invited me to your apartment? He said that he was getting renovations done. Exactly a month into us dating, he asked me to be his girlfriend and I said yes. Oh, I had not been to his apartment at this point. He had been paying for everything. Follow for part 3. Fiance fake being rich to get me to marry him. Should I leave him? At this point, he had been paying for everything. Every single time we went to dinner, any date we ever went on, he paid for everything. About 2 months into our relationship, I asked him again if I could go to his apartment. That's when he made up another excuse. He told me the contractor that was doing all the renovations in his apartment basically bailed on him. So his apartment was basically in shambles. I told him that I actually knew a contractor who could help him out. And he told me not to worry about it, that he had it covered. The very next week, he had prepared an elaborate proposal. He took me to Central Park where he had a band. He gave me a 3-carat pink diamond ring. Of course, I said yes. I was so happy. Never thought I'd find love again. After the engagement, I told him that we should just move in together. That's when he said, perfect, I can move into your place next week. I was like, what? He said that he actually wanted to sell his apartment. So I said yes. And the very next week, he moved into my place. When he showed up to my apartment, he literally only had 2 suitcases. And most of the clothes were kind of old and raggedy. I asked him where all of his stuff was, and he said, this is it. That's when I started getting really suspicious. I called his modeling agency, and they told me that they hadn't worked with him in 3 years. So apparently, he wasn't really a model. Confronted him and asked him what was going on. He confessed that he hadn't modeled in years. That when he met me, he was so impressed that he needed to tell me something to impress me. He told me he had a lot of credit card debt and that he actually couldn't afford the lifestyle he was showing me. Then he also told me that he never even had an apartment. He was sleeping on his friend's couch. I told him I couldn't marry him or trust him, and that he was probably only after my money. He swears that he loves me. No, he hasn't asked me for money, and he's offering to actually pay for rent. My friends and family think I should leave him, but I love him and I'm so attracted to him. What should I do? Storytime about how I kissed every teacher I ever had a crush on and never got caught. Disclaimers is not my storytime, it's sent me on Instagram. Growing up, I was a spoiled brat. My parents gave me literally everything I ever wanted. For my 15th birthday, I told my dad that if he didn't get me a BMW, I would run away. So on my 15th birthday, I got the BMW. My parents never said no to anything. One time I told my parents I wanted to have a party at my house and they said no. I threw a tantrum and started to cry. My dad pulled out his credit card and told me to stop crying and I could go buy whatever I wanted. And I pretty much maxed out his card. He did punish me for a month, but all he really took away was the TV. As you can see, I was completely entitled. And yes, looking back, I would love to punch myself. I was a complete brat. When I got into high school, I went boy crazy. My parents told me they did not want me having boyfriends, but of course, I put up a fight. They had no choice but to let me have boyfriends. I would bring them over to my house all the time, and I would always take them up to my room and lock our door. My dad told me one time to open the door, and I wouldn't, so he just left me. Eventually, I got bored with all my boyfriends, so I would just break up with them. But one day, this new high school teacher comes in. We made eye contact for about 5 seconds. I was obsessed. Follow for part 2. Storytime about how I kissed every high school teacher I had a crush on and never got caught. Disclaimer is not my storytime, it's sent me on Instagram. After we locked eyes for about 5 seconds, he looked away. But I was totally obsessed. He was like the most perfect guy I'd ever seen. And the first thing I did was go to his classroom. I knocked on the door and as soon as he saw me, he smiled and said, come in. We talked for about 2 minutes and he told me that he was only substituting. So I knew I needed to make my move really quick. Fortunately, I was not taking the classes that he was substituting, but I had to find a way to get close to him. So I started watching everything that he did. My school had a big outdoors area and there were lots of tables around. And I noticed that he would go behind the library to eat his lunch. So I started going behind the library to eat my lunch. I decided to get there before he did so that it would be a coincidence. As soon as he saw me, he waved, but he sat at another table. So I grabbed my food and went over to sit with him. That's when I started asking him if he had a girlfriend. He got super red. This guy was blushing. And I knew right away that he probably had a crush on me. He basically didn't give me a yes or a no about the girlfriend, but I didn't care. But I didn't want to make my move right away. I said for the next 3 days I sat with him at lunch. Finally, he asked me, "Don't you have friends?" And I said yes, but they're all annoying. That's when I leaned in for the kiss. And no, he did not pull away. The kiss lasted for about 10 seconds. As soon as we pull away, he starts looking around to see if anybody saw. And he told me that I need to find someone my own age. By the way, he was 24, I was 17. Next day at lunch, I asked him if he wanted to go to my car. And we ended up kissing 3 more times that day. That's when he asked me for my phone number. Follow for part 3.